Just for today, everything's okay, everything's okay. Never comes again, another day like yesterday. Just for today, everything's okay, everything's okay.
Hi, all. I have been doing far fewer episodes since we lost our home in the wildfire and sort of getting things lined up and getting things back in order. I'm still dealing with legalities of that or whatever, but just very busy. But we've moved in. We're in a new place for 2 or 3 months and we're comfortable. But I'd gotten out of the habit of recording episodes, so I wanted to get back to doing them a little bit more consistently. And so I determined, in order to do that, rather than having this big aha moment in which I would end up pontificating as I cook it in front of you for an hour and 20 minutes, that little thoughts and observations that I have, that I'll come share them and maybe do something. I've threatened this before and said I'm going to do 20 or 30 minutes and then it ends up being an hour anyway. But no worries. It's my podcast. So I'm going to speak on something that I see a lot in Los Angeles, and people comment a lot about Los Angeles, and it's almost always from a judgmental or critical standpoint. I sometimes ride my bike into work along the Metro line. They have a dedicated bike path, which is great. I really appreciate that. It's much safer for bikers, and I don't have to deal with traffic until the last 5 minutes of the ride. And along the ride, because it's a safe place, it's out of the wind, there's these concrete walls up on either side. Of course, homeless folks camp out there, and you'd just be riding along in the morning and there'll be a sleeping bag and a cache of stuff sort of sometimes spread out, sometimes sort of tidied up. And you look at this, and first I'm going to address the people who take this as an opportunity to piss on Los Angeles, which has a lot of homeless folks. And especially after the pandemic, all of a sudden there was an explosion of homelessness all along Venice Beach and Santa Monica Beach. I mean, just literally an encampment of tent after tent after tent after sleeping bag, etc. Same thing on sections of Wilshire. And you have folks like Joe Rogan, of whom I'm a big fan, and I listen to many of his podcasts, and I deeply appreciate how thoughtful he is and how he makes space for multiple, sometimes contrary points of view, and he explores, and he just does his thing, and he's unapologetic about it, and I really appreciate that. And sometimes I think he has taken on some of the foolishness of the right-wing, criticisms. And one of his criticisms of Los Angeles is like how LA has lost it, and, it's dangerous, and there's so many homeless folks. And this is not to beat up on him. Again, I'm a big fan, but he's more visible. So just, that's an opinion that's very representative of the types of comments and attitudes that the right wing has about what they call sanctuary cities or left-wing cities or democratic cities. And I'm going to address that right now and call you guys out and go, you're full of crap. Like, here's how you know you have a right-wing bias. You're not thinking through the circumstance of the situation, because why it might be true, rather than viewing it as like, well, the politics are out of control and, liberals and wokeism and blah, blah. Yeah, really, you think that's what it is? Or is it maybe literally the most comfortable environment almost on the face of the entire planet? It sticks between 65 and 75 almost the entire year. You don't think that's why homeless folks do anything they can to find their way here? Really, that doesn't factor in for you? That's how you know you have a right-wing bias, because the fact that you leverage or aim that criticism at Los Angeles without even paying lip service to other factors. One of the primary, why do you think real estate is just insanely, absurdly high here? It's not because we're better as people, or it's a better culture, or it's better food, or blah, blah. There are many ways in which some of the food's quite mediocre, and, people are people, whatever, you like the culture or you don't. It's because it's fucking sunny all year round, which is also why there's a shitload of homeless people here, because they're not freezing to death in the winter. They're not in Minnesota where it's life-threatening, right? So that's how you know you have a right-wing bias, is because the fact that you never mention that, not once, as also part of the complex cause of an enormous amount of homelessness, tells you that, yeah, it doesn't offend me. I'm right wing in some ways and left wing in other ways and centrist in other ways. What, I don't give a shit about political bent, but you got convinced of some bullshit if you can leverage and aim that criticism at Los Angeles and never once mention that it probably has a lot to do with the environment and the sun and blah, blah, blah. Now, there are some other things that it does have to do with that are related to left-wing politics or democracy, blah, 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 which I don't have a problem with, right? Another reason why there's so many homeless folks here is because we have a shitload of soup kitchens and food stores and places where you can go get a bed for the night. And we have lots and lots of mental health support. So there's a lot of kindness in an attempt to make those folks' lives a little bit easier. Now, you can have whatever opinion you want about that. You can say that's bullshit. You can, like, whatever. I don't care. I'm not here to debate that. But in my opinion, that's a kindness. That's not a criticism of Los Angeles. That's a kindness. If you have an issue with that, again, you're drinking the Kool-Aid, dude. If you get all pissy about how homelessness and how horrible the city of Los Angeles has become because there's homeless encampments everywhere, blah, 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 but you don't talk about the fact that it's become a big challenge exactly because we attempt to do everything we can. And yes, I'm sure there's terrible graft and I'm sure there's tons of money being wasted. Like, I don't have arguments with that. I can't stand government. Government is entirely full of shit. Go look at some of my other episodes and you will know that I don't trust the government any further than I could throw Thor's hammer. But the intention and the desire to provide food and to provide shelter for folks doesn't bother me. I don't think that's a criticism. If you think that's a criticism of the city, then you got issues. Okay, let's go one further. So this is where I really do get pissy about people who attack Los Angeles because there are so many homeless folks. And this is related to the fact there are food kitchens, but especially related to the environment. And I haven't done a study. This is just me riffing and having opinions and thinking through and going, I bet it's because of this. Maybe I'm biased. Maybe I'm defensive because I've lived here for almost 40 years. But the thing that really pisses me off is these people who come from cold, miserable, wet places, really right wing, who have all these opinions about whether homelessness is not allowed in there, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you have the same issue Los Angeles did. All you did was drive them out of your space, and then they came to Los Angeles. You think all these homeless people were born and raised in Los Angeles? They weren't. They're from Portland, Oregon, Portland, Maine, New York, New Mexico. They're from all of these places, many of them red as fuck states, whose way of dealing with people in desperate struggle is to go, fuck you. We don't want you around. It's not our fault. Okay, man. Okay. And so they come to Los Angeles. And so we have this overwhelming problem, or fairly overwhelming problem, of homelessness and homeless encampments everywhere. And you arrogant red state motherfuckers dished the problem off to us and then went, oh, look at you guys. It's your fucking problem, man. It's our problem. All of us. The entire United States. It's our problem. It isn't not your problem because you forced to go somewhere else where those people are like, okay, well, we'll try to accommodate them and help these desperate folks that are struggling. And you're like, well, see, we don't have that in our city. Yeah, because you're a pile of shit, motherfucker. Because you're cruel and cold and lack empathy and lack the complexity of thought to recognize that we all participate in this situation. All right, so I got pissed and I insulted people, and I do that fairly often, and I like to back out and go, okay, I don't like, if I'm pissing you off and you feel insulted, I don't actually want to insult you, and I don't actually think I have a right to call you motherfucker or whatever. But it's also my podcast where I just want to be myself. I've commented before as a therapist, right? It just becomes natural to be very, very careful. And there's always this unconscious sort of filter to ensure that I'm speaking to my clients with the utmost of respect and presence, and that I'm not engaging in political opinions or bringing my own biases. Of course, I'll fail at that, but that's always there. And so part of the intention of my podcast is selfish. It's just like, it's a place where I get to say what the fuck I want to say. I get to cuss and I get to be who and how I am, and you listen or you don't. So anyway, no offense meant, or a little offense meant if you really are that person. It is a lack of ability to engage in complex thought and to take responsibility. And so here, let me come to the larger point. Look, I was raised in that culture where when you saw homeless folks, you know, it's like if you're a young teen, it's like you yell at the window, get a fucking job. And there's all these myths propagated about like, oh my God, you know, that woman, you know, has a house and, you know, 3 kids and she drives a Lexus. And then you see her put on these dirty clothes and she's on that corner and she's making thousands of dollars. It's a fucking myth, man. It's a myth. It's a myth. I have never, ever, 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 ever not once seen that documented as reality. What that is a bunch of people who struggle with empathy, who desperately want to believe that the thing that they're seeing in front of them, that they're not responsible for. And in the defense of those people, they don't want to feel bad or feel sad. They don't want to deal with how tragic that situation is. But then instead of taking responsibility for that, they just project blame onto that homeless person and then abuse them. Hey man, wake the fuck up to your own stunning lack of empathy. Now, I've worked as a mental health professional. I spent some time in addiction clinics, sober livings, a place where I was supporting folks who, some of them were semi-homeless, and I was trying to help get them housing and to clean situations up and support them as they struggled with whatever their life is. You have no idea of the pain and suffering that was normal for almost all of those folks between 0 and 10 or 0 and 20. You have no idea. You probably had it, you know, folks who've had a pretty freaking hard life and maybe had fairly cruel and abusive parents. Those are the worst, right? Because the truth is at some deep, deep level, they're looking at what they almost could have been or that they've had to struggle desperately to not become that person. And so then instead of empathizing, they want this boundary, they want this barrier, and they're almost like, well, that could have happened to me and I fought out of it, so fuck you. But you have no idea. Your life was very hard, but you have no idea the level of cruelty and abuse that all of those, like, you can tell sensational stories about the horror of what people have experienced. And there it's like every single story when you're dealing with homeless folks, unhoused folks. So I am going to hold myself to kind of a shorter time limit today because I have some other stuff to do. But what I want to tell you is, and this is something that I practice as I'm walking around Santa Monica, which has a significant unhoused population, as I drive on the bike path and as I drive around. And I was raised in the culture I was raised in, and I still have an instinct of discomfort. I learned to look more and more to look them in the face, say hi, good morning, or whatever. And it's amazing how a human just shows up, right? And they'll just nod and say hi, or sometimes they feel shy or like whatever. On once in a great while, somebody will take it as an opportunity to be like, hey, sir, could you give me some money or would you mind buying me some food? And I'm happy to do that. But this is what I practice. And I don't practice this to be nice, to be a good person. I practice it because this is a fact, because this is true, because I want to align with what's actually true. Modern society has increasingly created an inhuman, innavigable situation in which many folks are unable to navigate it, given the level of trauma and struggle, and given the opportunities that were available to them from the beginning. And don't do that American bullshit where you take the exception and hold it up and go, well, this guy, because I'm telling you as a therapist, if you go look at that guy's life who lived through what they lived, that guy had somebody show up quietly who coached him or helped him every time. They had a resource person, or they had someone show up for them that showed them a different way, which is why they got busy getting busy and turned it around. And those folks have had a stunning level of relentless abuse and repression and violence aimed against, especially if they're the kind of people that the police like to beat up on. So don't run that bullshit at me where you take the exception that looks like the exception and pretend that that person solved that problem, because they didn't. They had advantages and they took advantage of them and they leveraged them, and kudos to them and congratulations, and I respect them and that's great. But don't pretend it's the same fucking thing, because it's not. I hear this all the time, clients will come in and they'll be like, well, and they'll tell me a really abusive childhood, and they'll be like, somebody else went through that. And I'm like, no, you get into the subtleties and the full spectrum of what a person experienced, and you will find the person who's really struggling just to function and make it in a complex and challenging modern society didn't have some very basic things that other person who had an abusive childhood did have. And those are significant things that allowed them. It's like one person was lost at sea in the middle of a storm, but someone threw them a life raft, or someone threw them a floaty and the other person didn't. And we're like, why are they still drowning? Well, it's fucking obvious, right? If you're a therapist and you sit here and listen to these stories over and over and over, it's not even interesting. It's boringly consistent how if you provide a human being with a few significant resources and they get a view, they just get a view of a chance and not suffering all the time and having a little money and having a place to live, they will go after that shit and they will fight through pain and suffering and misery to get there. But they have these other unempathetic people, these folks who didn't get those resources and who are outside on the street, sleeping on the sidewalk and putting their hand out and saying, excuse me, sir, would you mind, blah, blah, blah. They have these unempathetic assholes yelling out the window, go get a fucking job. Or people who just sneer at them. It's like, well, I've been through some stuff and I didn't, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you have no fucking idea what that person lived through. So again, I don't want to spend too much time beating up on those people who lack empathy, because then obviously I lack empathy for them, because there's a reason why they lack empathy. They've had to protect themselves and they've had to struggle desperately. But let's bring it back to modern life has created the situation in which increasing numbers of people do not have the wherewithal to remain warm and clean and to feed themselves. And rather than us going, as a society, we are failing to provide a humane system in which most, if not all, humans can function, we create these increasing problems. We as a society participate in it. And you might not know what the answer is, but that doesn't mean you get to blame the victim. You may not know what the answer is, but that does not mean you get to blame the victim. If you don't know the answer, just admit that you don't know the answer. And if you don't feel empathy, just be like, hey, I'm going to stay out of it because I have some emotional disconnect and some lack of understanding of the situation that doesn't allow me to feel empathetic. So I'm not going to comment. I'm going to stay out of it. I'm not going to yell out the window, go get a job. Right? Shut up. Back out. You don't understand what's happening or what's happened. What's happening or what's happened is we've increasingly created a situation that's too complex and too challenging and too overwhelming for folks who have gone through severe and intense decades of abuse. And if there are people of color, then that isn't just their family of origin, then they go out in society and they're already struggling to function. And then they have increasing insult and they have increasing violent interactions with police officers who see them as a problem. We have created that. We, me, you, every person who owns a home, every person who feeds their kid, every person who goes to the movies, every person who buys a vehicle, every person who gets to fly to Hawaii on vacation, all of us, yeah, you too, all of us have participated and are participating in a system that makes it increasingly difficult for the most abused and disenfranchised and mistreated among us to function at all. And we keep talking as if they created the problem. They didn't. I did and you did. So what I practice is every time I pass by these humans, I have those instincts I grew up with of discomfort of like, hey, I wish they weren't there. Like, oh, are they going to talk to me? If they look me in the face, I look them in the face and say, hey, how are you? Or good morning. If they ask for money and I'm not feeling it, it doesn't feel right to me, I just say, sorry, not this morning. You have boundaries. You're a big boy. You're a big girl. You could just say no. If you feel guilty, that's your problem, not theirs. Or help them and feel good and enjoy it and treat them like a human being. Like a human being. Treat them as what they are, a human being. Right? So I do that. And a second part of the practice is even if I don't address them, I look at them and I just think to myself, I love you, brother. I want better for you. And I'm sorry for my part in it. I love you, sister. I want better for you. And I'm sorry for my part in it. Does that feel weird? Does that feel gross? That's your emotional limit. That's your problem, not theirs. So if I'm moving slowly, I'll look them in the face and say, hi, nod, good morning. If they ask for something, if I'm not feeling it, if it feels weird or I'm in a rush, I just say, hey, I'm sorry, not this morning. And keep moving. If I'm able to, I give it and treat them as what they are, a human being. If I don't address them, or if they're not looking at me, I look at them and in my head I say, I love you, brother. Right? I want better for you, and I'm sorry for my part in this. I love you, sister. I want better for you, and I'm sorry for my part in this. I challenge you. It's not just good for them. It's good for you because you're not being woo-woo, and then fuck that. You're aligning with what's true. You're not being weak and deluded about what's true. We have to stop pretending that being kind is some soft and emotional. It's not always. It's actually aligning you with what's true so that you're not fragmented and fractured and weak inside. It's weak to delude yourself. It's weak to lie to yourself that this person is just some lazy piece of shit who just didn't feel like trying as hard as you did. That weakens you because it's a lie, because it misaligns you with what's actually true, which is this is a human being deserving of all the comforts and opportunities and all the love and respect that you may or may not have received. It is their inheritance as a conscious being. That's what's true. And when you align with what's true, it makes you stronger, firmer, it makes you more courageous, it makes you healthier. Forget about being like, oh, so emotional and empathetic. Oh, John, but you're a therapist. You're like, oh, fuck that noise, man. You don't have to be all soft and weak. Align with what's true and strengthen yourself and have some courage. Have some courage to reject the bullshit and the lies and the delusions that you were fed because society at large is weak and spineless and can't handle the pain and the suffering that we have created. And so then we blame the victim and go, screw them. They're lazy. They're just blah, blah, blah. They're just some addict, or they don't feel like cleaning up, blah, blah, blah. Whatever bullshit you tell yourself to try not to feel guilty about what we have created weakens you. It's a lack of courage. It's a lack of moral fortitude. It's a lack of alignment with what is scientifically, factually true. That's why. So I dare you. I dare you to have the spine. Men, I dare you to have the balls to align with what's true, is that every single one of those human beings is deserving of respect and care. It is not your job. You have a tough life. You probably have kids. You have a difficult job. Nobody's saying go buy somebody an apartment. I can't. I struggle to keep my family up and running and to make sure my kids have what they're like. I'm not doing it. I buy them food and stuff, but if you can do nothing else, align with what's true. Don't abuse them and align with what's true. Look at them and say, I love you, brother. I want better for you. And I'm sorry for my part in your experiences. I love you, sister. I want better for you. And I'm sorry for my part in your experiences. That's not a sign of weakness. That's a sign of having a fucking spine. That's a sign of aligning with the truth and living with a sense of courage that what you say is not going to, there are going to be lots of people who would laugh at you, make fun of you, blah, blah, blah. They can go fuck themselves. They're deluded. They live in a delusion because they think it makes them safer and because they think it separates them from their guilt and because they think that somehow they're not accountable to what's real and what's true. But all they do is shove it into their unconscious, and then they unconsciously feel guilty and they unconsciously know that they're not showing up in a way that's healthy for them and in a way that they can respect themselves. They don't know that they're weakening themselves. They are weakening themselves. Don't align with them. They're deluded. Align with courage, align with what's true. And yes, be empathetic and be kind. I'm going to stop there. Love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. And to all my unhoused folks, all my folks who struggle, all my folks in prison, all of the immigrants who are sitting in holding cells and being deported to countries that were not their country of origin, struggling, to all of the folks that my society, from whom I benefit, all the people of color who have struggled and been abused, all of these folks, I want to say it to you right now. I love you, brother. I want better for you, and I'm sorry for my part in it. I love you, sister. I want better for you, and I'm sorry for my part in it. All of you, I love you. I want better for you, and I'm sorry for my part, for my failures and my participation in a system that has rejected and denied your humanity. Love you guys. Talk to you next time. Bye.
Just for today, everything's okay, everything's okay.